Black Ops 3 Zombies Iceberg Explained? Let's go. Multiverse and the Cycle. The Black Ops 3 zombie storyline, if you didn't know, is a little bit of a mess. I mean, we went from a simple plot about German scientists using some space rock to accidentally causing the zombie apocalypse. Then we went to giant squids from other dimensions creating zombies to benefit them in some ancient war with dragons, spirits, magical bows, some weird ball with infinite power, different dimensions, and just whatever else they felt like adding. Not that it's a bad thing, but just saying. Black Ops 3 Zombies really put a lot of focus onto a narrative about an alternate universe version of the OG crew, now known as Primus, consisting of the iconic Dempsey, Nikolai, Takio, and Richtofen. These four go and travel across time and different universes to extract the souls of their original counterparts, to reach another dimension called Agartha, where some old Epstein client named Dr. Monty keeps a bunch of kids in his house, or something, I don't know, I didn't read the thing. And then these squid things called Apothicons infiltrate Agartha with the help of another Epstein client called the Shadow Man. And basically the Shadow Man's name gets leaked in the files, so he goes to space prison, and the OG crew get thrown into an infinite cycle because Dr. Monty doesn't really know what to do with them. Which could be interpreted as every playthrough that you as the player has ever done on any COD Zombies map officially becomes canon because of this cycle. It's always repeating and it's always going to be a little different. Dr. Monty. By now, I'm sure you all know who this is. If you've been around zombies for a while, you've probably heard the name Dr. Monty. He was a member of the Keepers that was first really introduced in Black Ops 3, and the argument could be made that he was hinted at in Black Ops 2. And he is basically the game's version of a god, and is the one responsible for things like gobblegums, perk, chalk drawings, power-ups, and all the other magical stuff that we know and love about zombies. Even though a lot of this stuff had kind of different meanings in Black Ops 1, they ultimately decide to throw that all away and make it all just Dr. Monty. And he starts out as a supporting character, aiding the Primus crew throughout the events of Black Ops 3, but he eventually becomes the antagonist during the events of Black Ops 4. And after Black Ops 4, not really much else is known about him. His fate at that point becomes unknown, and the only real reference you get to him in modern zombies would be the appearance of his red scarf that Samantha Maxis finds during her first visit to the Dark Ether, and eventually begins wearing it. But before her sacrifice to contain the Forsaken, the scarf was apprehended and later cataloged by Project Janus, and it was described as such. Another souvenir from Maxis's first Dark Ether imprisonment. Original owner unknown. A severely worn monogram only containing the letters M. Surely not for Maxis. Now there is no official sponsor for today's video, so make sure to check out GamerSubs using my link in the description and use code CRAZY to get that money off. They have tons of delicious flavors, awesome waifu cups, and plenty of cool merch. So if any of that interests you, check it out, link in description, code CRAZY, go do it now, back to the video. Super Easter Egg. Any modern zombies player likely knows all about what a zombies Easter egg actually is. But somewhat lesser known is the Super Easter Egg, which is basically an additional Easter egg triggered by beating every other Easter egg of the mainline maps. Although this first became a feature kind of in Black Ops 1 with the whole golden rod thing, it really started off in Black Ops 2. And Black Ops 3 did it best, as upon completing the main Easter egg for Shadows of Evil, Der Eisendrache, Zetsubou Shima, Gorod Krovi, and Revelations, along with the revamped Flytrap Easter egg on the Giants, the player can unlock the achievement titled A Better Tomorrow, which comes alongside 1 million XP and the ability to start with the RK5 pistol on any zombies map. Not too shabby. Shadow Man controlled Richtofen. This is something that was hinted at for a long time in zombies and eventually kinda got proof in Black Ops 1 Moon. One thing we do know about Richtofen prior to all these events was that he was hearing voices in his head and it was driving him crazy. And during the events of Black Ops 1 Moon, we finally got some confirmation that something is inside the pyramid other than Samantha.
The blackness will swallow your pride! Something far more terrible than you lies here!
And that was hinting that there was some other power inside of the pyramid. And we know that Richtofen at one point had touched the pyramid, and ever since then he had been hearing these voices that were basically driving him to reach Agartha.
Are you certain you want to do this, Dr. Richtofen?
Nein, Dr. Schuster. But this must be done. Quickly, put in your earplugs and power up the machine. Is there a power outage? Why is it so dark? I feel almost weightless. How very unexpected. Dr. Schuster? Hello? There. I can see now. Oh my God. I'm standing in a circular cave, surrounded by some kind of machinery. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It looks almost alien in nature. There's a pyramid structure in the center of the room. I'm going to try not to carefully touch it. Ah! Static electricity. It's smooth to the touch. Very cold. Not a speck of dust. Might be hollow. The chamber is quite large. I see what looks like capacitors in the ceiling of the chamber, but there are no obvious connections to anything electrical. What is this place? Dr. Schuster? Is that you? Dr. Schuster? Look at this. It appears to be covered in some kind of hieroglyphic language. I've not seen anything like it before. Why are you whispering to me? There's no need for that. Glass is loose. Do you hear that? It sounds like...
So whether this was all planned since the original Zombies, or was something that they came up with during Black Ops 1 Moon, or whether this was something they threw in during the events of Black Ops 3 once Blundell took over, that's only the creators may know. But one thing is for certain, whether it was the Shadow Man or any other being, something was inside of the pyramid and had an immense power and drove Richtofen to do a lot of the things that he did.
You do know that Richtofen is a friend of mine. I say friend, but really he's so much more than that. At one point, I almost considered him my apprentice. I mean, he did stab my reporter friend and steal the summoning key. But at one point, he did everything I told him to. I keep hoping he'll remember the promise he made to me so long ago.
Now, of course, it's not a video unless I shout out my Patreon supporters. We got Fat Lucky Potato, Icy Storm, Hey Y'all, Giovanni Diaz, G-Die Smackdown, Forg, Ty Mulan, and One Up Gamer. My Patreon supporters come visit me every day at my job at McDonald's, so shout out to them. Apothecans stolen from H.P. Lovecraft. Now, I wouldn't say stolen is the correct term. I would say heavily inspired by. And just looking at the Apothecans from Call of Duty Zombies, you can easily tell that they are heavily inspired by the Cthulhu mythos. Whether it's their eldritch appearance, these monstrous beings with tentacles and other alien-like features, or their indifference to humanity, the Apothecans see humans merely as tools to achieve their goals, very similar to their Lovecraftian counterparts, and the whole cosmic horror element. And you can even dive deeper and pick out specific people, like the Shadow Man and this name that I cannot pronounce, who are both manipulative entities, capable of influencing individuals and events for their own sinister purposes. You also have the Margwas and Shoggoths, which are large, monstrous, shape-shifting beings, often described as amorphous blobs of eyes, tentacles, and mouths, kinda similar to the Margwas. And the Apothecan parasites and the Migo, which are both flying insect-like creatures that have an alien appearance. So I wouldn't say that the Apothecans were directly ripped off from H.P. Lovecraft, rather heavily inspired by. Nightmares Game Mode. Nightmares was a bonus game mode for Black Ops 3 that threw players into campaign levels with all of the enemies being replaced by zombies, and the story replaced with some random narration between the female player and Dr. Yosef Salim, who was brought over from campaign. There is honestly no real point to this game mode. But at the same time, it is just kind of a cool addition that at least shows that Treyarch were willing to experiment back in the day. This game mode was originally just an Easter egg unlocked through the data vaults or by completing the campaign, a trend which we had only seen in World at War and Black Ops 1. However, they decided to make it available outright, regardless of campaign completion. I really think it would have been better if we just got thrown into a new zombies map after beating the campaign, like World at War and Black Ops 1. And I'll really never understand why they just stopped doing that in Black Ops 2 and onward. Maybe they started to realize people just didn't care about the campaign as much? I'm not too sure. Flytrap Easter egg. I briefly touched on the Giants' revamped Flytrap Easter egg in the intro talking about super Easter eggs. But basically, it was an old Easter egg ported over from World at War, in which the player had to shoot a button outside the map with a pack-punched gun. And Samantha would taunt you and send a bunch of teddy bears around the map, and you had to play hide and go seek, and locate and find each teddy bear, which would eventually reward them with nothing. I mean, come on, you had to give Treyarch a little break. It was like their first main Easter egg. But in Black Ops 3, the steps are just a tad different, but overall the Easter egg is kind of the same. But since there is a little more, you actually get a reward. And upon completing it in Black Ops 3, you will be rewarded with the Annihilator Specialist weapon and 1000 XP. And along with it also being an essential step in completing the Super Easter egg.
I want to play a game. Let's play hide and seek.
I want to play a game. Let's play hide and seek. Those were her exact words. Hey, you found one. I can hear her. Even now.
I want another one.
Wow, you found another one. There must be a purpose to this. I see it. The beacon is lit. I know where and when you are. Sooner or later, I will find you. Together, we will ensure a better future for the children.
Upgradable Apothecon Servant. The Apothecon Servant is pretty much the single most iconic Black Ops 3 original wonder weapon, and you'll find this supernatural hunk of flesh on Shadows of Evil and Revelations. On the latter map, in which you can actually pack punch it after doing a small Easter egg. However, what you might not know is that it was originally possible to upgrade the Apothecon Servant on Shadows of Evil via a side quest. That involved cocoons and you hatching things. But unfortunately, this quest was ultimately scrapped from the game. And if you want to know more about this, you can check out this video here that's all about cut content from Black Ops 3. On the bright side though, the upgraded Apothecon Servant can still be used on Shadows via console commands if you are playing on PC. But I mean, at that point, if you're playing on PC, you might as well mod in Thomas the Tank Engine and have a Peter Griffin player model. Last Gen Richtofen. Last Gen Richtofen is an iconic meme from the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of the game. Originally started with the ending cutscene for Shadows of Evil, where Richtofen appears and steals the summoning key. And I mean, if this isn't just the most gorgeous being to ever walk the earth, I really don't know what is. But seriously, the fact Last Gen Black Ops 3 looks so bad is still astounding to me, considering Black Ops 2 still looks pretty gorgeous to this day. Well, at least in my opinion. And don't get me started on Black Ops 1. Some parts of Black Ops 1 still look good to today's standards.
I'm so sorry. I really don't have time to explain. I have a universe to set right. Thank you and goodbye.
Zombies and Campaign. I've talked about this one extensively in my Call of Duty Campaign and Zombies Connection video, which you should totally go watch right now. But during the mission Demon Within, in which the player confronts antagonist Sarah Hall, the majority of the mission takes place within her mind, and as it starts to break apart, the player is forced to hold out in a room with waves of zombies coming at them, as Sarah monologues about something that's totally unimportant. Another little interesting detail that is sort of hard to notice is that the room you hold out in is a slightly different version of the Gorod Krovi Pack-a-Punch room. Black Ops 3's campaign is full of little zombies Easter eggs, some which I have covered in the Connections video, some we will also cover much further down. But still, go check out that video, link in the description. Doppelganger Jump Scare. In the map Zetsubo-no-Shima, you can activate the Doppelganger Jump Scare. That will do this. Kind of a little bit like Five Nights at Freddy's. But the one thing about this jump scare is that even to this day, we don't really know 100% sure on how to activate it. We got a rough idea, but no one knows 100% what you have to do. So a lot of people probably have never actually even experienced this to this day. But essentially what you want to do is get a sniper rifle, come down here into the main bunker, and zoom in on some of these test subjects for around 20 to 30 seconds. And eventually you will get one at the right spot at the right time, causing the doppelganger to spawn in. And upon interacting with it, you'll get the crazy jump scare. Now I don't believe you can do this solo, at least I've never in my entire life been able to do it solo, and I'm pretty sure you have to do it co-op. And I really like how Zetsubo-no-Shima kind of leaned in with the creepiness factor. A lot of the things that they put in this map definitely made it very, very creepy, and I really appreciate that. Varrock's MG42 nod. So this could be talking about two different things. We'll start off with Revelations. In the map Revelations, if you head to the Varrock area and you look outside the map, you can see a giant fountain with an MG42 poised right at the top. And if you are a newer Zombies fan, you might have no idea what this is referencing. Well, this is taking us all the way back to World at War's Varrock. Under the map, you can find a mounted MG42, which seems to have been used for testing purposes and just ultimately left here. But that will never stop the community from constantly overthinking things. And thus, the legend of the MG42 under the fountain in Varrock was born. And even in the Black Ops 3 Zombie Chronicle version of Varrock, that very same MG can be found under the fountain, with it also having some new textures. And I believe this was actually supposed to be a turret trap that would rise up and behave very similar to the one you see in Kino der Toten. Hence why it has a new makeover and all the stuff around it. It was supposed to rise up, become a turret trap, and then eventually go back down. But unfortunately, it does seem like it was cut. Why? I have no idea. This would have been one of the coolest things ever. Maybe it was because zombies just really never spawn over here and it kind of would have been useless, but still, I think it would have been freaking awesome, and they should have included it. Icarus on the Giant and Shadows of Evil. Icarus is the name of the iconic plane from Mob of the Dead, and although that map takes place in a purgatory-like pocket dimension, the plane has somehow made its way in both Shadows of Evil and the Giant, and it can also even be seen in Zetsubo-no-Shima. In Shadows of Evil, you can see the plane flying over the map while doing the main Easter egg, and in the Giant, it can be found resting atop a roof in the back near the power switch. And in Zetsubo-no-Shima, if you look up in the air as you see all these things flying in and out of little teleporters or portals, sometimes you can also occasionally get a glimpse of Icarus. And the storyline reason is because as the mobsters are traveling to Pack-a-Punch, as they are flying on Icarus in Mob of the Dead, they are jumping in and out of portals, going into different dimensions and times. So that's why you see it fly ahead over Shadows of Evil, and that's also why you can see it in Zetsubo-no-Shima. Space Dog. What started off as a complete rumor back in Black Ops 1, mainly spawned from the YouTuber MC Sporttalk, eventually became its own Easter egg in Black Ops 3. For the Black Ops 3 Chronicles version of Moon, you could do this Easter egg and a dog in a spacesuit would literally spawn. Keeper's Language. The Keeper's Language is found in a lot of places throughout Black Ops 3, most notably in Shadows of Evil, as a bunch of cool ominous symbols that you can see from the tram, and that you can interact with to unlock the sword, for example. Now there also is basically an entire canon Keeper language that has a lot of actual translations, and for those diehard fans for Black Ops 3, it's pretty cool. And if you ever want to decide to learn a useless language that you'll probably never use in real life, there are plenty of resources available to you. I still believe the website Mr. Raffle Waffles actually built called Chronorium.com is still available. Now it's kind of sad because when this was originally introduced, it was pretty hyped up, but I don't think they really ever did too much with it. Especially considering how hyped it was at the beginning, it kind of had a quick fall off. Revelations Bugged Easter Egg. This entry is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The Easter egg in Revelations is notoriously buggy, especially the step in which you go around and throw the summoning key like a huge bouncy ball, because it's not only possible, but very easy to straight up lose the summoning key, and be forced to down yourself or spawn a death machine to get it back. Or if neither is an option, well, screw you, back to the beginning. Which understandably can be kind of frustrating, considering how close this step is towards the end. Shadows of Evil Impossible Easter Egg. This refers to the infamous unsolvable Easter egg that was allegedly on Shadows of Evil that was revealed by Jason Blundell in this interview.
So going into Black Ops 3, I'm fed up now, and you won't get this one. So going into Black Ops 3, I'm fed up now, and I'm going to really put one in that you guys can't break, and it'll be hidden in different arenas, and you won't get this.
And this had the Zombies community scratching their heads for a long time, mainly because a lot of people thought it was just on Shadows of Evil. And eventually we did come to learn many years later that it's not just on Shadows of Evil, but on Black Ops 3 Zombies as a whole. And it was merely just an editing design choice for why we all really thought it was just on Shadows of Evil. And the community has probably scrubbed through every single game file multiple times, and hasn't found a single thing, which is probably leading it to believe that it's purely visual, and not some activate and shoot Easter egg. And upon completing of said Easter egg, it is believed that it will reveal some secret regarding the lore of the game. And of the current year, 2025, people still hold hope that Jason Blundell will reveal some information that will give us a little bit closer to solving it. Because in this Dalek interview that he did say that he expects to come back here in 8 years' time.
I assume that everyone is going to take the code, take the Radiant, and take it apart. Which means anything that we could put in script, and anything I could put in with Radiant, I'm assuming you could just open it up and find it.
Yep.
So if you're seeing anything and it looks like it's engineered, you're probably off, because you'd have already found that by now.
Okay. Interesting. So basically, is that well hidden that?
Well, it's like, and here's the thing, I know there's intensity in the community. I think I may be talking about this in about another 8 years' time.
Wow.
You're the one who asked me for the World at War one.
Yeah, and that was
so
8
how long
years.
did I hold that? That was 8 years, yeah.
And that was so simple.
Yeah.
Like looking back at it, it's frustratingly simple.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things where it wouldn't matter if you data mined it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter.
Okay, interesting.
So here's the thing, just to crush everyone's dreams.
Okay. The official statement.
You can ask me all you want. I'm going to put that away in a vault and talk to you again about it in 8 years' time.
Okay.
And as I'm making this video, we really don't know too much about the Easter egg, if it's solved or even if we're close. There are plenty of people out there that are still currently working on it and think it revolves around the KN-44 blueprint and the Apothecan language, and who really was Dr. Monty. There are tons of good videos out there where he talks about the Hypercube, John D, and plenty of other things, so it seems like maybe we are getting closer to solving this impossible Easter egg, but it's been 8 years and we haven't solved it yet. Who knows if we ever actually will. Der Eisendrak Raven. On the map Der Eisendrak, a raven can be found near Mulekick, and of course the Zombies community did its thing and dove way too deep into this with all sorts of speculations and theories on what this raven could be, especially because it could actually be shot. So that has to mean something, right? Well, kinda not. Nothing ever really came of this, but there have been a couple theories on what this raven could possibly mean. The one that I like the most is that it's just a shout out to Raven Software, which is a company that has helped out with a lot of Call of Duties. Another theory that I have seen has to do with Der Eisendrak's real life location, that castle with its name that I can't pronounce. Apparently they have a lot of falcon and bird shows there, so maybe this is a reference to that, and just giving a shout out to some of the things that you can do there, even though I do think that is a big stretch. And to me personally, I think it's just a shout out to Raven Software. I mean, they both are ravens. It makes a lot of sense in my mind. The Great War was meant to be playable. If you didn't hate budget cuts before, you will after this. as there is a lot of speculation that Revelations was originally meant to be set during the Great War between mankind and the Apothicons. But the scale of this idea was too immense and was ultimately scrapped, allegedly. This is really only a theory, and I believe there was a lot more speculation about that map being implemented in Black Ops 4, which also never happened. But either way, considering how important to the lore of this conflict was, it's a shame we never got to see a map set during it to conclude Black Ops 3, or even 4 for that matter. But instead, we got a rather lackluster ending that we all know to this day. Distant monster on Zetsubo no Shima. This entry refers to the fact that upon reaching around 50 on Zetsubo no Shima, you can see and hear a giant monster in the distance if you look outside the map from a certain point. I love this because it honestly feels like a nod to the whole idea of a secret Hitler boss fight for reaching around 50 or 100 back in OG Zombies. Every map had some sort of dumb theory like that, and I kinda like that we do see some distant bad guy that we don't know much about. What's his deal? What's he doing out there? Or I like my own headcanon theory that it's also a shout out to me and my Guns on Round 50 series. And everybody in the Zombies community thinks I'm some horrible monster, so maybe it is my Easter egg. Samantha's teddy bear in campaign. Believe it or not, the teddy bear that we know in Zombies has been around in multiple other modes, like in a lot of Call of Duty's campaigns. In Black Ops 3 in the campaign mission Rise and Fall, if the player makes an immediate left upon stepping off the train and walks down the platform, they can find this very distinct teddy bear tucked away next to some spools of wire. Now when you're playing a Treyarch game, you might understand that the teddy bear, Samantha Maxis, and Zombies, those are all kind of one thing. But what does it have to do with campaign? And why has it been in so many Call of Duties essentially since the beginning? Well, the theory goes that it's actually a tribute to a developer's daughter who passed away, with her favorite toy being a teddy bear. And that's why you find the teddy bear in a lot of other games that have nothing to do with zombies. And I'm not sure how true that story is. It's the story that I always heard from forever ago, so I'm gonna choose to believe it. Censorship in Zombies. This entry simply refers to the censoring of Nazi symbolism in Black Ops 3 Zombies, especially the ones ported over from World of War, which has been an even more controversial issue as the years go on, due to the amount of censorship that we see nowadays. The reason this was done was allegedly because without it, the game would have not been able to be released in Germany and a lot of other countries. Many people were unhappy about this because it removed from the creepy, sinister atmosphere of the game. And a lot of people just straight up don't like censorship of any kind. And I kinda do have to agree with them. The Black Ops 3 Kino and Verrucht just don't feel the same. Shadows of Evil Mob of the Dead references. Shadows of Evil surprisingly has a lot of references to Mob of the Dead. The first one can be found right outside of spawn. A lot of you may be familiar with this, but have no idea what it's referencing. Outside of the map through this barricade, you can see a little note hanging on a jacket. And if you can manage to knock it down with a grenade, you can pick it up for some free points right here on this crate. But if we take a closer look at this note, we can see it's from Chang's Laundry. And it is a laundry receipt for none other than Sal DeLuca, one of the main characters you play as in Mob of the Dead. Another reference can be missed if you're really not paying attention. After opening up the Pack-a-Punch area, you can see the very same plane that you ride in Mob of the Dead to Pack-a-Punch flying through the air. The next reference is also down kinda near Pack-a-Punch. On the wall next to where you would get the swords, you can find a map of Mob of the Dead hidden behind all of these faces. The next reference is going to be a poster. In Mob of the Dead, one of these Easter egg steps has you throwing your tomahawk at this Escape from the Tomb poster. Well, that very same poster can also be found in Shadows of Evil over by the movie theater. Also around Shadows of Evil, there are a couple businesses with names that directly reference the cast of Mob of the Dead, such as O'Leary's B&L, Finn O'Leary, DeLuca's Shipping Co., established 1849, and even Jackie V himself has some quotes about the characters.
I once busted a little weasel who tried to use one of these to blast open a bank safe. Dumbass nearly blew himself up. Could've used this when I busted Sal's liquor joint. Finn O'Leary's whiskey tasted better than this shit. What is this? One of Billy Handsome's trophies?
Plunger. In Der Eisendrache, you can get the Plunger melee weapon, which does the same amount of damage as a normal knife. But you can upgrade it to the flammable plunger, which will be a one-shot against panzers. In order to get the plunger, the first thing you're going to have to do is get the Ragnarok DG4s and set them down as a trap behind the clock. Then you want to hit this button and start the clock. And all you have to do is make sure to stop the clock at 9:35. If you're doing it solo, it can be kind of annoying. Just try to start the clock and stop the clock so it only moves one, and just keep doing that until it reads 9:35. After that, an orb is going to appear in the pyramid room. Wait for the anti-gravity to turn on and start wall running. And once you do that, you will be teleported back in time, where you can pick up the plunger that is sitting right next to this desk. And congratulations, you now have the plunger. And in order to get the flammable plunger, all you have to do is kill a panzer. And once you have killed that panzer, for 1 minute, you will have the flammable plunger, which is a one strike against panzers. And I feel like they kind of really dropped the ball on this one. I feel like it would have just been a cool Easter egg if once you got the plunger, it's always a one shot against panzers. And instead of that, they made it to where you have to actually kill one panzer first. I'm not sure about that. They should have just made the plunger a one shot, one kill against panzers, because in my opinion, as it is now, it's just not really that great. And I feel like more people would have gotten it if it was just always a one shot, but that's just my opinion. Developer pictures. If you've ever been walking around Shadows of Evil and you wondered, who are these jabronis, or what does this name mean? Well, there's probably a pretty good chance that it's some of the people that actually created the game. If you head over to the boxing gym and you look at some of these faces, a lot of these people are developers and worked on the game. Hell, even if you walk around the map and look at a lot of names of businesses, majority of them are the developers. So if you are ever playing a zombies map and you see a random name on a business, there's a pretty high chance that that person helped create what you're playing. Private Eye's Gobblegum. Private Eyes was a cut gobblegum shown in the promotional art for the game before launch that seemingly just wasn't there on arrival. The gobblegum was meant to create a danger indicator for zombies so that players would have a harder time being snuck up on. Ultimately, there was still some code for the gum left in the game, but it was never fully implemented in the end. And I mean, did we really even need it? We eventually have seen features like this show up in more recent games, but I don't think it would have been that worthwhile in Black Ops 3. Egypt map rumors. This has been a rumor for as long as I can remember. It seems like for every zombies game, there's at least a couple people speculating that we could finally get our Egypt map. But before the launch of Black Ops 3 in 2015, one of the game's teaser trailers teased the setting of Egypt by showing the coordinates of Cairo, which obviously we did see Egypt in the campaign of the game. However, the presence of 115 in the trailer led players to believe that this reference to Egypt was actually teasing a zombies map, which, looking back on it, it's kind of disappointing we never got this as a Black Ops 3 map. It would have fit the game perfectly. Anyway, we kind of technically did get to see Egypt in Black Ops 4 with the Zombies map 9, but it's just not the same. Maybe one day we'll finally get a proper Egypt map with exploring pyramids and having some sort of mummy boss zombie. But probably not. Jason Blundell blinking Morse code. This entry refers to multiple Jason Blundell interviews where players have believed that his blinking actually translates to Morse code, and that he is secretly communicating details of new zombie maps. A theory which peaked around the time of Zetsubo Shima, although I believe maybe some of his blinking was actually Morse code, and that was able to be translated into secret details, which was covered by good old Mr. Raffle Waffles way back in the day.
This is what the message says. Brace yourselves. Seat is GS. Do not put 115. Do V. That's the first line. Then, second line is contact doctor. Yeah, okay, this is sounding really weird now, isn't it? Third line, S Shiva Fei KU SRS PWKV, so nothing really in there. But then, I do not wanna, and then SXHPSR or D, so probably nothing in there as well. But then, Skuama, trust me, RTK, Sam, and then GRSA, AUIS, DMSASS, I am, and then RHSDSGFSDUKCR, the Doctor. So if we pull out the English words from that, we've got do not put 115, do V, contact Doctor, I do not wanna, and then trust me, Sam, I am the Doctor.
But during that specific time period, anytime this man breathed, everyone thought it was like a secret code. This dude probably couldn't even take a piss without somebody thinking way too far into it. Cut customizable characters. In early pre-launch builds and concept art of Black Ops 3 that players have discovered, an extremely interesting feature that we never got to see implemented was customizable characters in zombies, which seemed to be built around an XP system that awarded new outfits for playing characters consistently, sort of like leveling up a weapon. This would have been a pretty cool feature, as long as it stayed somewhat grounded and not like Black Ops 6, where we have
Nicki Minaj
and Beavis and Butthead running around teabagging the Terminator. Man, I kinda miss when this franchise had an identity. Maybe I'm just getting old. Round 256. Round 256 is an entry talking about the notorious Round 255 cap in Black Ops 3 Zombies, which was likely implemented to both prevent game crashes and to stop the more creative players in the high round community from reaching rounds in the tens of thousands like we've seen in World at War Shinonuma. Anyway, with this sort of feature like this implemented into a zombies game, naturally players have speculated about Easter eggs or secret features that remove the round cap and allow players to access 256 and beyond. If you haven't seen a theme that the zombie community looks way too much into things, then don't worry, there's probably a million other entries that are going to show you that the zombie community looks way too far into some things. Ancient civilization under Morgue City. This is a theory that in the Pack-a-Punch room in Shadows of Evil, you can see essentially what looks to be an ancient civilization. With all the architecture and all the buildings that were there at one point, it is a very popular theory that seems to be true. And we can get a little bit more information about this in one of the radios on Shadows of Evil.
Hey, Mr. Rapt. So, I went by the market again today. For some reason, the fruit seller was much more talkative. Even if what he said was more than a little crazy. He told me that when he was a boy, his uncle would get drunk and start talking about how a dark force cast its shadow over the city. How good and evil were battling right on our doorstep. And that the only thing holding back the forces of the apocalypse was the ancient order of the Keepers. Well, even if what he said was more than a little crazy, I'm not sure he was. Even though they're scared, or maybe because they are, people are talking more. Asking around, I've heard more than a few whispers about this ancient order and the Keepers. I think it's some kind of cult. They say you can hear them chanting sometimes. From beneath the city. There's all these rumors about human sacrifices and freaky shit that even the police won't investigate. Because they've been paid off? Or because they're too damn scared? I'm not sure what to believe anymore.
So in that radio, the reporter says he was talking to a fruit seller who mentions that the ancient order of the Keepers is doing some cult-like things underneath the city. So maybe there was some sort of ancient civilization underneath Shadows of Evil. And that's essentially why the map Shadows of Evil takes place kinda where it does. And besides all that, we really don't know too much about the Shadows of Evil Pack-a-Punch room and really what all was going down there. The Giant is in France. This entry is rather interesting because this made a lot of people believe that the Giant, aka Therese, is located in France, which we know not to be true. But this had a lot of people confused. But when you take a step back from it, it's pretty simple. The Giant is just a reference to the giant robots from Origins. And the reason this confused a lot of people was one, because some of the teasers for Origins said the Giant is in France, and in some of these ciphers in Black Ops 3, we also see the very same thing. So if you were not too in the know, you might think that this means the map, when it actually just means the giant-ass robots. Chronicles is canon. The Zombies Chronicles DLC, which brought so many iconic older zombie maps to Black Ops 3, is actually a bit more in depth than we might have known. A common theory suggests that the maps are canon, but they're separate from their original versions, because of the whole, cycle thing going on. Basically, the changes between the original maps and the Chronicles remasters are canonized by the idea that each cycle slightly deviates a little bit from the original, and that leads to all the changes between each of the maps. So literally, it just kind of comes down to basically it's an alternate reality version of the same map. And the storyline, like implications, aren't really too deep. Shadows of Evil cast are dead. Shadows of Evil introduced us not only to the iconic noir-themed Morgue City, but also the 4 playable inhabitants: Nero Blackstone, Jessica Rose, Jack Vincent, and Floyd Campbell, not to be confused with Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup. These 4 were a pretty interesting cast of unique characters who added a lot of character to the map. But unfortunately, it's pretty unlikely we will ever see them again, as after the events of Shadows of Evil, the entire cast of the map ends up being killed when the Apothicons invade and destroy their dimension literally the next day. So after you do the Easter egg, you essentially doom them to their death. And it's a shame that this crew is canonically dead, as it would have been cool to see them return in later CODs, instead of having the OG crew for the dozenth time now, which was recently announced with Black Ops 7. But I get it, celebrities are expensive, so you might as well just make a million more skins for people to buy, so that way you can afford to get more celebrities. 3 World Wars. This entry refers to a Nikolai quote from The Giant, where he is speaking to Dempsey and he says this:
"When did you last check? We were allies in all 3 world wars!"
This line is obviously intentionally cryptic, and I believe it's a mystery on what exactly the Third World War is. Although it's likely referring to the human-Apothicon conflict, I don't know if this was ever actually explained. There's been plenty of theories, but you have to remember, when The Giant was made, they were kind of just winging the storyline at that point, and a lot of things were introduced and very quickly dropped. I think the direction they were wanting to head during The Giant was probably a completely different direction than the one they actually went with. Der Eisendrach's Real Castle. Believe it or not, a lot of zombie maps are based off of real things, and Der Eisendrach is no exception. It is based on the Hohenwerfen Castle, which was a medieval castle built between 1075 and 1078, and was built at the behest of Archbishop Gebhard of Salzburg, and it was built as a fortification, and was one of the 3 major castles to secure a route across the Eastern Alps. But unfortunately, King Henry had my boy Gebhard expelled in 1077, and the Archbishop could not return to Salzburg until 1086, only to die in the castle 2 years later. And for the following century, the castle served many rulers, not only as a military base, but a residence and hunting retreat, until eventually the castle was used as a state prison, with a pretty sinister reputation, with many criminals' tragic fates ultimately coming to an end behind these walls. And in World War II, the castle served as a Nazi education camp, and opened on March 5th, 1939, and was decently active in World War II. And after the war, it was used as a training camp by the Austrian Rural Police until 1987. And currently, the castle stands as a museum, getting plenty of visitors coming to and from. And even a handful of zombie YouTubers, of course, have made their way out here. And that's the footage you're watching right now. I've never been here, but a lot of people certainly have. So next time you play any zombies map, just know that it probably has some sort of resemblance to something in real life, whether it be big or small. Zetsuba Nishima Hallucinations. Like I said earlier, Zetsuba Nishima definitely did a good job at just making the map very unsettling and creepy. And one of the ways they did this was by adding some hallucinations. If you stand at some of the gas spores for a little too long, and you go to certain areas of the map, you will experience these hallucinations. Drew Marlowe Easter egg. Drew Marlowe was a designer that worked at Treyarch, and this Easter egg was not found until a couple years after the map's release. And it has to be some of the most random steps that I've ever seen. It is surprisingly easy to do. All you have to do is go to round 2, but don't go past it. Allow all the zombies to break down every single barrier in the spawn room. Then, build exactly 2 boards on top of each of the 5 barriers. Then, purchase the RK5 off the wall. Build 2 more boards onto each of the barriers, so you want to have 4 boards total. Then, you want to purchase the Shiva off the wall, replacing the RK5. Then, put 1 more board onto each of the barriers. Then, repurchase the RK5, replacing the Shiva. And after you have done all that, you want to run down to this door, buy it, open it, and right here you will see a heart with a picture of a family. This is Drew Marlowe and his family. And this has to be one of the most random Easter eggs that I have ever seen in Zombies. And it really makes you think, what else is out there that has just ridiculous steps like this that we haven't found yet? I mean, there has to at least be 1 or 2 that they've hidden so well in the script that we haven't gotten to yet. Or maybe we've gotten them all. Who knows? Last Gen Zetsubo. The last gen version of Black Ops 3 was notoriously awful. This version of the game looked awful on top of lacking so much content, including campaign itself, and over half the DLC maps. The final DLC map released for last gen Black Ops 3 was Horizon Track, meaning this version of the game never got Zetsubo no Shima, Gorod Grovey, Revelations, or any of the Chronicle maps. However, many players held on to the belief that last gen would eventually get a DLC too, Zetsubo no Shima. And to this day, there is speculation that a cut build of the map for last gen is out there somewhere, waiting for someone to finish its development. And for a while there was a pretty good bamboozle going around that showed alleged footage of last gen Zetsubo no Shima. But this was actually just PC gameplay with an Xbox controller and the graphics set to ridiculously low to make it seem like it was last gen Zetsubo no Shima. But alas, it was not. Transit and Mob cut from Zombie Chronicles. I mean, this title is pretty self-explanatory. After Zombie Chronicle released, some players did some digging and found a bit of evidence that Transit and Mob of the Dead were meant to be included in the DLC. Which, while not confirmed, sorta does make sense, considering Mob was eventually remade for Black Ops 4. And there was a lot of talk around the lifecycle of Black Ops 4 that Transit was going to be remade too, but sadly we never got it, and we had to wait all the way until Black Ops 7 to finally get a Transit remake. Venus Cipher. On Revelations, there is a very interesting cipher that says this: October NSA report. They found the source on Venus beginning extraction. And we never got anything more about this. Even to this day, all these years later, we don't know what this means. There have been many theories and people digging in to try to figure it out, but we never got a concrete answer. And I have seen plenty of theories trying to explain this. One of my favorite basically says that the cipher itself is also using code words. And if you break it down, it is essentially saying that Broken Arrow captured another scientist from the Ascension group by using info that they extracted from Yuri. And we'll go section by section. October NSA report. The NSA is an intelligence agency in the United States. If they're working with other groups from the storyline, it would probably be Broken Arrow. They found the source on Venus. We do know that Gersh and Yuri were working on the Gersh device, codenamed Project Mercury. And the reason that's important is because maybe they were nicknaming their projects after planets. Project Mercury, Project Venus. You see where they were going with this. Beginning extraction. This one could literally be exactly what it sounds like, extracting information. We do know from Alpha Omega that they did a number on Yuri.
You lie.
So if we put the whole thing together, it seems like Broken Arrow found whatever they wanted by extracting information from Yuri. Another theory is way more general, that they were extracting 115 from Venus. And another popular theory is that this is just what Treyarch does story-wise. Sometimes they throw in interesting ideas, and if the community latches onto them, they dive deeper into it. But if the community doesn't really care, then they just kind of forget about it. So this is one of those things that I don't think we're ever really going to get an answer to. Revelations' second ending. Back during the early days of Revelations, when the Easter egg was first complete and we got to see the quote-unquote grand finale of Zombies, many players were left unsatisfied with the ending, and still are to this day, which led to speculation that there was actually another secret ending, which required finding alternate Easter egg steps to trigger a different cutscene. This theory actually became very plausible for a while, when players dug through the game files and found what seemed to be an inaccessible alternate cutscene. I believe this turned out to just be a mistake by the developers, and there is sadly no alternate ending to Revelations. Gorod is Nikolai's purgatory. This is a pretty popular theory that states that Gorod Krovi is Nikolai's personal purgatory. The theory suggests that Nikolai 1.0 is dead, and that the events and setting of Gorod Krovi are a manifestation of his afterlife, similar to how Mob of the Dead is theorized to be purgatory for the mob characters. The reason people think this is number one, because of all these similarities to Mob of the Dead. Both maps feature zombies with red eyes. You also have the presence of talking boss zombies, with the Mangler and the Warden, further strengthening the connection between the two. And if we take a look at Nikolai's character arc, Nikolai is known for his troubled past and multiple marriages, which could be the source of his torment for his purgatory. And the whole events of Gorod Krovi, including the war-torn Stalingrad, could all be interpreted as a reflection of his inner turmoil. And the whole storyline in Black Ops 3 revolves around the Primus crew needing to break the cycle. And one of the steps that they have to do is preserve Nikolai's soul using the summoning key. This implies that Nikolai's soul is trapped and needs to be released, potentially through death and entering a purgatorial state. The theory that Gorod Krovi is Nikolai's personal purgatory is an interesting one. I don't think it's true, but it definitely gives us something to think about. Because if that would be true, wouldn't every other map be insert character's own purgatory? Think about that. The Giant Memory Loss Theory. The lore behind the Giant is all kinds of fucked. There are so many questions that to this day we still don't have answers to, and that kind of make no sense. Like, why didn't the gang all arrive together? Why did they arrive separately? We know that Samantha sent them from Origins to this area, but there was a 2-year gap between Origins and the Giant. So what were they doing for 2 years? Were they just dicking around on the Earth? Explain some of the weird radios. Like, the Giant just has so many unsolved questions that I don't think we're ever going to get an answer to. But one of the theories to help explain some of these unsolved questions is that all the characters are suffering from total memory loss. Well, not total memory loss, but like a great deal of memory loss. And we even have quotes to back this up.
Infestation confirmed. Positive identification of 115 on site. As expected, my memory's slipping. Unable to determine current jump count to this location. 2 at least, maybe more.
I must work quickly. There's so much to do. The vessel from access, the radios, the opening of the gateway. 9! I'm getting confused. Curse these 115-induced delusions!
Curse this confusion. I must remember my mission. Why I am here. The enemy war machine must be destroyed.
Unlimited Death Machine Glitch. The Unlimited Death Machine Glitch is a pretty self-explanatory exploit found, I think, back in 2019, in which players needed to do some pretty weird stuff with Wi-Fi settings on their PC or consoles, which also included clearing save data in some circumstances and connecting a second controller. I have no idea how this all happens, but basically the game completely bugs out, and it lets you put multiplayer attachments on zombie guns. And the strategy is basically to do this with the Shiva, because once you pick up a death machine with this modded Shiva, it basically lasts forever. Like, you will literally be able to sit in a corner and shoot some glitchy ghost death machine for as long as you want. This is by far one of the most insane glitches that I've ever seen, and I still don't understand how someone even remotely manages to come close to finding this. Like, how? The Giant Cut Easter Egg. This entry, I believe, refers to old rumors from around the time Black Ops 3 launched, about the Giant having a top secret super duper Easter egg beyond just the remastered Flytrap one. I believe this theory mostly stemmed from the fact that the Giant was very simplistic compared to the other Black Ops 3 maps, so players were itching for a more complex Easter egg, especially with it being the second launch map. And once players failed to find this more complex Easter egg, this led a lot of people to believe that it had been cut. And the argument could be made that this is kind of supported by some of the dialogue in the map that really just doesn't make any sense. But that's just what I could find about this entry. There might have actually been some sort of grand Easter egg cut from the map that we'll just never ever see. Richard Rodriguez. This is talking about the guy who won the Become a Zombie contest for Black Ops 3. So let's rewind a little bit. 10 years ago, Treyarch ran a contest where you could win various prizes, but also win the chance to become an actual zombie in the game.
For the first time ever, we're offering a chance for someone to be a character in Call of Duty. That's right, you're actually gonna be in Black Ops 3 as a zombie. Just don't fall for that trick.
Hey, what are you doing? We talked about this. You know that's not just a monkey.
Now, if you win, we'll fly you out here to Treyarch in Los Angeles, where you'll not only get zombified, but you'll get an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of our studio and lunch with myself and some of the team. And one other surprise. We're even gonna put your last name somewhere inside the game. How's it coming?
Just waiting on a name.
And I'm not supposed to be doing this. Let's take a quick peek at what you could look like.
Now, unfortunately, the guy who won, Richard Rodriguez, never got to become a zombie. I think the reason they claim was just because it was too difficult to make it actually happen, whatever that means. But instead, they gave him 2 different appearances. One in Go Rod Crovey, where you can find his name, Richard Rodriguez. And 2, I believe they used his appearance as the actual character that Jessica Rose kills. You know, the guy in the cutscene, the one she may or may not stab. I believe that guy was based off of Richard Rodriguez. So unfortunately, he never got to become a zombie, which does suck. But his name is in 2 maps, and one of them in a pretty decently big way. So in my opinion, not as cool as being a zombie, but it's up there. Zombie attack in London. Heading back over to Drak, there is an Easter egg where you can learn that London may or may not be under attack by some zombies, depending on how many times you've plunged things. I know that sounds really dumb, but let me explain. You guys know about the plunger Easter egg that we talked about before. Well, if you get the flaming plunger and you come over to this newspaper that reads, "Huge parade in London, large turnout for parade," and you hit it with the flaming plunger, it will change to reports of zombie attacks in London, officials not confirming, with what looks to be like a zombie charging right at the camera. And if we do all that one more time, we get zombie attack in the heart of London, with a very, very clear picture of a lot of zombies. And in the top right, it says, "Parliament gathers for emergency meeting." So what is going on in London? Well, we never know. This was never really expanded on. I think this was one of those things where Treyarch throws out some bait and sees if the community latches onto it. And if we do, they explore it. And if we don't, they just drop it and forget it. This is not the first time they've done things like this. How many storyline threads have just disappeared out of nowhere? Quite a bit in Zombies history, and I feel like unfortunately, this was one of them. Breaking Bad Easter egg. This one could kind of be a stretch, but I can definitely see how it is referencing Breaking Bad, or Better Call Saul. If you don't know what either Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul is, they have to be some of the best and most beloved television series, and where a lot of memes you probably see nowadays come from. And back when Zombies Chronicles had came out, I think it was at the height of Better Call Saul. But I'll let you see for yourself. In Verrückt, if we come over to this barricade and look through it, we can see a zombie skeleton with a very interesting hat sitting in a wheelchair with his legs cuffed together. And a lot of people have theorized that this is a reference to Hector Salamanca, who has been known to wear that very same hat, is also wheelchair bound by the time of Breaking Bad, and ended up dying in a sewer slide explosion. I mean, come on YouTube, we really still can't say that word. And if we compare all of that information to the skeleton we find in Verrückt, I gotta admit, there is a lot of references that I can see. The only one I really couldn't understand was the legs being cuffed together, but maybe that was used to emphasize the fact that Hector couldn't get out of his chair, he was kind of stuck there, and really wasn't allowed to leave or do anything. But I'll leave this one up for you guys to decide. What do you think? Was this a Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul reference or not? I personally think it was. Takio diddled by a spider. I have talked about this in a previous Iceberg, and I feel like I did a really good job back then, so I'm gonna have Past Me explain it because that guy's pretty cool. This is a very infamous theory in the Call of Duty Zombies community that states that the big spider in Zetsubo may or may not have diddled Takio. And it's a really dumb theory, but it's so stupid, but it does have a tad bit of, well, maybe, that it's kind of true, but also pretty much not. So it seems that the spiders in Zetsubo no Shima are based off of Lovecraft's Lang spider, or the Spider of Lang. And in the video that people always talk about that says, hey, Takio was diddled by a spider, they always bring up how the spiders are infertile, like the male spiders cannot mate with the female spiders. So the female spiders would enslave male men and diddle them and basically create more spiders. But in all my research, I could not find anything that backed that up at all. In fact, Lovecraft himself barely even wrote about the spiders of Lang, and in his writings about them, he most certainly really didn't talk about their breeding. And I scoured the internet for a while, and really there's not much information about these spiders of Lang. On a website called Cthulhu Eternal, it does talk about their egg laying, and it says there is a widespread fear of spiders laying their eggs inside living victims. These spiders really do it. And that's really all I could find about these spiders of Lang. If there is any information about them capturing males and diddling them, then it was most certainly not by Lovecraft himself and was by secondary authors. And really the only other piece of evidence that people use is in one of the Zetsubo no Shima videos that Treyarch posted. We get some Imperial soldiers bringing Takio in front of the giant spider. And that's all the evidence that we got. So did Takio get diddled by a giant spider? No, not in the way you're thinking of. I wouldn't be surprised if they used Takio as a host for them to lay eggs in and then sprout out more spiders, but the diddling you're thinking of, I'm gonna say no, that didn't happen. There is only one Richthofen. Another super interesting theory in Black Ops 3 Zombies is that there's only one true Richthofen, Richthofen Prime, a Richthofen that stands out from the rest. As we know, there are many different variants of our crew across the multiverse, and different eras of history, etc. But this theory pretty much states that among all of the Richthofen variants across universes, Ultimus, Primus, Great War, etc., etc., only one version becomes unique by breaking the cycle of repeating timelines and making certain moral choices that others couldn't or wouldn't make. And that variant becomes the Richthofen, in terms of both identity and narrative weight, as we follow that Richthofen later on in Black Ops 4. Custom maps are canon. Similar to the previous entry about Zombie Chronicles maps being canon, this theory states that because of the infinite nature of the cycle and multiverse, each and every custom map that has ever existed is canon, with some maps just being messed up interactions of the cycle in which Primus or the Shadows crew end up in a cool location they're not meant to be. Or some maps being a pocket dimension in which Kermit the Frog fights off zombies in an Arby's or something. But I don't know. You'd be hard pressed to convince almost anyone that certain custom maps are canon. And if you can manage to convince them, then honestly, I'd say become a lawyer, because have you seen some of the custom maps people have made? Yeah, some are just way out there. The Bible predicts the storyline. This entry covers a theory regarding the plot of Black Ops 3 sharing a lot of similarities with the Bible, such as Keepers and Dr. Monty representing angels and God respectively, and the final map being titled Revelations and being set in some sort of heaven, or Agartha. This also applies to the Apothicons and the Shadow Man, as they would represent fallen angels and Lucifer, who was originally God's right-hand man. And I'm pretty sure it was part of the lore that a very long time ago, Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man were actually pretty tight.
Now here's the thing. I knew a bloke, and I'm talking way, way, way back. He was the sweetest, most charming individual you could ever wish to meet. He was funny too. We used to have such a good old laugh together. Honestly, my sides hurt thinking about it. He was my friend. He was my best friend. And then the Apothicons got hold of him. Since then, he's pretty much acted as their agent, zipping around the galaxy. Wait, I keep changing it, don't I? Which do you prefer? Universe? Multiverse? Omni-fucking-verse? Oh, it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? Yeah, let's get on with it. Short version is, he's no longer sweet, charming, or funny. He's what brought them here, when he escaped the key.
Another key plot point is that the summoning key seems to be representing the forbidden fruit from the Garden of Eden, which basically brought sin into the world, just as the summoning key would ultimately allow the Shadow Man into Agartha. Overall, there are a lot of different theories and biblical connections people have pointed out for Black Ops 3. But a lot of these are disconnected from others, so if you want to look further into this, I'd recommend just looking up these different theories and deciding which ones make the most sense, because some do, and some are a stretch. The cycle was never completed. This one is rather interesting, and it basically is used to explain, or at least the theory that I found, it explains why new zombies still keeps coming out, like why we still have new zombie games and why it's just not totally dead. And that would be because the real cycle has yet to be completed. I mean, why else would we see the OG4 return in Black Ops 7? I thought their story was done. Well, some might say it's because Activision and Treyarch want more money. Other big brains would say that the cycle was never completed. It's still going. We have yet to make that full loop. So until we do, we will never officially be done with our OG crew. Or at least that's how you can explain modern zombies. Crazy Rabbit's real hate crimes. This is just pure slander, propaganda. I am an innocent little schoolgirl.
We're gonna go fight Bowser, and then we're gonna fuck him. I'm like a goddamn great white shark. I don't even own a Bible. That's retarded. Oh, my nipples are already hairy. There's Japanese everywhere. Konnichiwa. What you want? No, they're gonna dick me down! 50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a goddamn Chuck E. Cheese.
So this Crazy Rabbit's real hate crimes? I don't know what it could possibly be talking about. I am a saint.
I don't know how to say this, but I'm not gay. Wink, wink.
Hey,
F you! I'll suck your dick. He ties people to the radiator, and that's how he grapes them. Hey, Grandma, welcome to my home. You all, what's that? That's my life-size proportion horse cock. I'll bend it over. Just stick it right in there. Fuck my teeny tiny dick. Oh, I'm gonna fuck him. I'm gonna go to their kid's house. I'm gonna fuck them too.
I have never once done anything to hurt anyone.
This is Tim Hansen, and this is the worst weapon in zombies. Let's make him shoot. I know.
KN44 significance. For a very long time, because of this one image, people have been latching on to the KN44 and thinking that it has something to do with the impossible Easter egg. And for many years, people would try everything that they possibly could using the KN44 to try and solve it. But that's when reality strikes. Thanks to Glitching Queen, we kind of got a little bit more understanding of the KN44's significance. It seems like it was kind of just used. In one video where she was DMing somebody that was kind of directly responsible with helping create all this, they basically come out and say that the KN44 was kind of just an inside joke, that the community latched onto it, so they kept throwing the KN44 around because the community had just latched onto it. And she even had an interview with some of the creators of the Hypercube image, and in that interview they basically said that they were originally going to use an AK-47, but were told to use a gun from the game and ended up going with the KN44 because it was easily recognizable.
Was it your idea to put the KN44 in there?
I forget. I think I may have just put an AK-47 in there at first, and then somebody told me, "Hey, use whatever it is within the game." I know there's all this talk back and forth about, and I can't confirm or deny any of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so you could have used a different weapon, but you were told to use something in game and not something more generic.
It's very similar, right, as far as the silhouettes go, because of the curved magazine. So yeah, yeah. I think I was told, yeah, use something that's within the game, right?
Okay, so you could have used like an SMG or an LMG, but you're like, we'll go, AR, put the K in. But I think it was originally called like the ARAC at the time. And
Yeah,
really,
I mean, the good part about that rifle is it's instantly recognizable, right, as a weapon. If I had put in like a pistol or something, it might have, well, first off, it would have looked underwhelming. And then, so you would want something a little bit, more substantial, I would say.
So with all that reality coming crashing down, it seems like the KN-44 isn't as significant as we thought to the impossible Easter egg. It might still have some relevance, but to me, I think it might just be a red herring. Now, whether you think the whole impossible Easter egg thing has been solved by now, or whether there's still more out there, who knows? I'm tired of seeing YouTubers upload impossible Easter egg finally solved, and then you watch the video and nothing has been solved. But one thing I do know for sure is that the KN-44 doesn't seem to be as significant as we thought it was. Scrapped difficulty settings. Another piece of interesting cut content for Black Ops 3 Zombies was that it was originally going to have multiple difficulty settings, similar to what we got in Black Ops 2. Although this time around, there was meant to be 3 difficulty settings instead of 2, with Survivor, Hunter, and Exterminator difficulty. The former 2 likely being your standard easy and normal difficulties. It would have been pretty interesting to see how Exterminator difficulty would have played out. If they made the zombie attacks more deadly or made them faster or just tankier, all of that would have probably been a terrifying combination. With like having crack addicted zombies that hit you at light speed and can soak up 1,000,000 bullets, this mode could have possibly been very similar to what we saw in some of the difficulty modes in Black Ops 4. Leviathan Custom Map is DLC 5. So back in like 2020 or somewhere around there, when Black Ops 3 Custom Zombies was absolutely thriving, the absolute chads Jaybird632, X Zombies, and Awesome Pie Man delivered what was considered one of the greatest custom zombies maps at the time, Leviathan, which was a remastered World at War custom zombies map set in a giant underwater research facility that basically felt like Moon and BioShock combined. And for a time, this map exploded in the zombies community. It was adored by everyone, and big YouTubers were making 1,000,000 different guides for new players. This map was practically treated like an official new map, which was kind of insane. Although, sadly, with time, no one really talks about Leviathan anymore, but maybe that's just another symptom of the COD Zombies fatigue that's sort of hit the community in recent years. And probably the biggest factor, a lack of accessibility to the map for console players. Real life Agartha. Agartha is a key plot point when it comes to the storyline of Black Ops 3 Zombies, a perfect world ruled over by Dr. Monty, and the final destination of our main cast. However, what some of you might not know is that Agartha is based off a real concept of a perfect realm that basically exists on the inside of our own Earth, which implies our Earth is hollow, and it explains why Antarctica is considered completely off limits to most civilians. And that part is very true. If you go there, they will arrest you. And that is because it is believed that hidden somewhere amongst the giant continent of ice is the only gateway to Agartha. And for you fellow World War II nerds out there, you absolutely know the conspiracy theory by now that a certain angry Austrian painter resides in Agartha and has been there since the end of World War II. Useless door on Ascension. If you head all the way back here on Ascension, and if you no-clip out of the map, and you come right to the top of where this door is, you can see that you can buy another door. Now, purchasing it doesn't really do anything on the Black Ops 3 version. This originally was also in the Black Ops 1 version. If we head all the way to Black Ops 1 Ascension, and we come to the same exact spot, you can also purchase a door. And upon purchasing it, if you look right here, you'll notice that this had actually moved. It seems like it was just something that they forgot to take out and just never really noticed it until it was too late. And then we're just like, it's not gonna affect anything and no one's ever gonna know or really interact with it, so why take it out? I just think it's pretty funny that it also carried over into Black Ops 3. Northwoods. This was a very fun theory back in the day, and it all sprouted up because of one Xbox Marketplace glitch. That would show you something like this that said Northwoods by Activision, and it read, "Tired, cold, alone, surrounded by sounds of the unknown. Through the tree line you hear them coming, hunting. Do you have what it takes to survive, or will you descend into madness? Welcome to the frozen desolation of Northwoods." And of course, this spawned countless theories that there was going to be a Zombies DLC called Northwoods. I mean, hell, you combined this with the Black Ops 3 Zombies menu where you're literally in the woods, was a pretty good indication that we were probably going to get a Northwoods map. Or that's what we thought. Of course, we know that we never got a Northwoods map, but what was this? Well, Northwoods is the alpha name for Black Ops 3. And I would assume the reason they named it Northwoods and gave it all of this stuff is so that way people wouldn't know it's Black Ops 3. If they're working on something or if people are playtesting it, you would never know what they're working or playing on. Hence you have Northwoods and all this extra stuff. It's just a shame that the marketplace glitched out and led us to believe that we might be getting another Zombies DLC. It really was just one of those glitches where it happened at the wrong place at the wrong time and sent the Zombies community hunting after dead ends. Solaris. I really couldn't find too much information about this. I bet somewhere out there is a interview that someone gave that mentions this movie by name. I could not find it. So if you happen to know more about this, please let me know down below in the comments. But allegedly, the Treyarch devs were all told that they had to watch this movie to get a general feel of what they wanted out of Black Ops 3. And if you don't know about this movie, the main plot is like so. A bunch of scientists get sent out to this orbital space station that goes around this mysterious planet, only for them to come to understand that this planet may or may not be alive and has the power to manifest someone's innermost desires. For example, one of the main characters, his wife passed away by taking her own life. The planet creates an exact copy of her, essentially trying to create a perfect world for someone. And I can definitely see how if they were to watch this movie, they could take some aspects like that and interweave them into the zombie storyline. But like I said before, if you happen to know about an interview where they expressly talked about this, please let me know, because I'm very interested. Zetsubo Noshima copied Indiana Jones. Copied is a very, very strong word. I would say heavily took inspiration from. The Zetsubo Noshima intro cutscene seems to take heavy inspiration from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. In the beginning of that movie, we can see a scene that plays out very similar to Zetsubo Noshima. To start off, both in the game and in the movie have a scene that takes place on a ship where it's pouring rain and at night. And in the game and the movie, there's an artifact that they are fighting over, whether it be the summoning key in Zetsubo Noshima or the crucifix in Indiana Jones.
I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese.
And in both of them, said artifact almost gets sent off the edge of the ship.
That was close.
Of course, in both we get a fight scene, and both of these scenes end up with our main characters floating on some sort of raft while the ship explodes and sinks, and then they have to swim to shore. I wouldn't say Treyarch copied Indiana Jones, but I would say that they took heavy inspiration. And if you have seen some of my previous Icebergs, you would know that this is not their first time doing this. I'm not saying it's wrong. I actually really like callbacks like this. The zombie community writes the story. This has been a pretty common theory ever since World at War Zombies, that the zombies community is basically writing the story for Treyarch, or at least pushing it in the direction that they wanted to go in. I mean, some of the first real examples, and one of the biggest examples we've ever seen, has to be Samantha in World at War. Back in World at War Zombies, I believe in Verrucht, players thought that when a zombie would swipe at you, it would say Sam. And this led to countless theories about who Sam was, thus making Treyarch put a Sam in the game. And it kind of feels like, even until today, that the zombie community kind of picks and chooses what we want to explore. This is why you'll see a lot of concepts in zombies be brought up, and then ultimately just discarded. And that's because the community either one, showed no real interest in it, didn't know it was there, or never solved the little riddle or Easter egg that they had around it. Like I said earlier with the London thing, nobody really paid too much attention to that back when it was a thing. So Treyarch probably saw that we weren't latching onto that, and dropped that, and picked whatever the community was latching onto, and moved forward with that. So I would agree to some extent. I wouldn't say we are writing the story, but I think the zombies community kind of pushes it in the direction that we want to go in, and then the developers write the story around it. Or at least that's what I think.
I was on, I'm pretty sure it was Call of Duty Zombies forum, and someone had written a post that said, guys, I was playing, and there's a zombie that when he swipes you, I think he says something. You know, he comes up to you and goes, Sam, Sam. And who do you guys think Sam is? And so we read this and we're like, yeah, who is Sam? Samantha?
We should make a Sam.
We could make a Sam.
Yeah.
So that's why in Doris, when we wrote the Samantha and Dr. Maxis, that's why the little girl's name was Samantha, was become some guy in the community heard a zombie say Sam, and that spawned this whole idea.
Now you know who Sam is. So sometimes the community really has a direct impact on future projects.
Yeah. We read what they say a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
John D. This is an Easter egg that was solved relatively recently, even though Black Ops 3 came out like 9-10 years ago. And this is saying that Dr. Monty, the godlike old man that we've been seeing throughout Black Ops 3, is actually John D. And we'll get into a little bit of how we know that here in a second, but who was John D? Well, he was a very controversial figure in English history. He was born in 1527 and lived until 1609. He was a scholar and mathematician, a highly educated man studying at Cambridge, and later became one of the most respected mathematicians in Elizabethan England. And not only was he involved with the maths, he was also deeply involved in astrology, navigation, cartography, and advised explorers such as those who charted routes for England's expansion overseas. So this was a very intellectual man. So much so that John Dee served as an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, mainly in astrology and scientific matters, but hey, you're serving a queen, you must be important. And he would go on to even be credited with coining and popularizing the term British Empire when discussing England's potential for global expansion. And of course, given the time period, not only was he involved in science, but he was also deeply involved in alchemy, astrology, and many other occultist beliefs like that. He would go on to conduct many attempts to communicate with angels. And from these sessions, him and his assistant claimed to have received a unique angelic language known as Enochian, which remains influential in occult traditions today. So he was trying to summon angels with ritual circles, where have we seen that before? And claimed that they had their own unique language. What else has a rather unique language? So this John Dee guy was very famous back in his day, and not only dabbled in science, but also dabbled in the occult. And this man, John Dee, is who Dr. Monty is. And we've only learned that relatively recently. A lot of people in the zombies community have pretty much come together and have put all this information together that basically points to Dr. Monty being John Dee. Now, even though we don't have like 100% evidence that says, hey, Dr. Monty is John Dee, I would say we're like 99% of the way there. One of the biggest pieces of evidence actually comes from Revelations. In Revelations in the Kino area, you can hear this radio.
Our revels are now ended. These are actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the basest fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself. Yea, all which it inherits shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on. and our little lives are rounded with a sleep.
And in that radio, Dr. Monty is reading a passage from Prospero, a character in Shakespeare's The Tempest. Now, two things about this radio. One, originally it was only supposed to be unlocked after completing the main Easter egg, but Treyarch ended up changing it and just throwing it in Kino. So why would they make this radio that seems to be a big nothing burger so important that it has to be locked behind an Easter egg? Well, that's because it pretty much points to Dr. Monty being John Dee. Because many people have said that Shakespeare's The Tempest play is actually based off of John Dee, with the main character being an insert for John Dee. So with knowing all that, Dr. Monty is essentially quoting John Dee. And just to make it so it's not so obvious, Treyarch was like, hey, we can't put this as an Easter egg ending. We should just make it seem like it's nothing and just throw it randomly in the map. Another thing that John Dee was also known for is being heavy into ciphers. And if we go look on Horizon Track, we can discover 24 books around the map. And I'm not going to go ahead and explain how people solved this because even my brain was starting to hurt watching it. But essentially, by using all of these books and using John Dee's methods for coding text, we eventually got the words, "Title is Dr. Monty." So with all this and a couple other smaller things, we can almost for certain say that Dr. Monty is John Dee. That was his true identity. Before becoming the godlike figure he is now, he was this scientist jabroni that was just helping queens and stuff, and just dabbling a little bit in the occult. Now, I really can't take any credit for any of that. All the credit goes to the Glitching Queen, the Gaming Revolution, and Skype in it. I am dumb when it comes to solving things like this, so I'm not going to pretend like I had any help in it whatsoever. But if you were ever really wondering who Dr. Monty is, he is John Dee. Now, is this the impossible Easter egg? To me, I don't believe so. I think there's still a lot more to this, and I feel like we still have a long way to go. Booty t-shirt. This is talking about one of the rarest Zombies t-shirts out there. Only a handful were made, and when I mean a handful, I mean like 2 or 3. And a t-shirt shows a scantily clad female with her back towards the camera while holding a zombie head with 2 zombies in the background and her also holding a gun in the other hand, with the words "Reckless" at the bottom. And this was all a part of the early Black Ops 3 promotion. And looking around, I think only 2 people got this shirt, Taiga and Evan Longoria. Evan Longoria is an MLB player, and I can confirm that he got it because I could find this tweet. But the one about Taiga, I'm still iffy about. I haven't found a picture of him wearing this exact shirt. But since these Reckless t-shirts, which were created by a streetwear brand called Young and Reckless, were only really given out to celebrities, it was almost impossible for your average Joe Schmo, like me, to get their hands on one, thus making these shirts some of the rarest Call of Duty Zombies t-shirts out there. So rare in fact that when I looked up booty shirt, it took me a solid minute or 2 to actually remember that this was a thing. Now, of course, when the Zombies community saw this shirt, a million different theories popped up, and the biggest one was that we were going to see Misty return in Black Ops 3. Mainly because if you remember some of the early Black Ops 2 promotional art, we saw Misty kind of in a similar position in some of the promotional work. So this led a lot of people to think that Misty was going to return. Now we know that she definitely didn't, but looking back on it now, I can see why we all thought this. It really did seem like she was going to return. Revelation ciphers can't be solved. So there are a lot of ciphers in Black Ops 3 Zombies that have not been solved to this day. And not just on Revelations, though Revelations does have a lot. But this theory is going along the lines of that these are just impossible to solve, that we physically cannot do it. And not because we're not smart enough. I think the zombie community definitely is smart enough to solve them. But a lot of people seem to believe that somewhere in these ciphers there was a mistake. That maybe there's one letter or number 2 that are wrong, thus breaking the entire thing and making it impossible to solve. And Treyarch would never come out and say that, hey, these are impossible, we messed up. Because 1, I don't ever see them admitting a mistake. And 2, it would kill a lot of excitement in Zombies. They still want people playing their game. Whether it's the new one or the old ones, as long as they can keep people interested, they're not going to want to ruin that. So even if they did mess up and these ciphers are broken, they're not going to come out and say it. They'll just let us continue forever and ever trying to solve them. So maybe one day, if Call of Duty somehow does die and has stopped for good, maybe then, and only then, will they tell us what these ciphers were supposed to mean. So that is going to be the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And if you did, make sure to check out this video and or this one, and hit that subscribe button. That's all I got for you guys today. Leave.